Boker Tov and welcome to our 2016 Homeschool Family Conference. And in today's session, we're going to talk about the purpose of preschool. I get a lot of emails from people who have questions about how to start homeschooling their children right from the various early ages, and I completely understand. We never put our kids in public school, so when my oldest son was just learning, to walk and to talk, I was checking out books from the library on how to homeschool. I really wanted to do it right. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to give your kids a good foundation and what the purpose of those preschool years even is. My name is Ann Elliott, and I'm the creator and founder of homeschoolingtorah.com. All right, first of all, we're going to talk about, to me, what is the most important function of the preschool years, and that is to teach your children how to play. I know that sounds kind of silly. We think that the most important thing our children should learn is the ABCs and their numbers and their counting and all of these academic skills, when actually I really don't think so. I really think the most important thing that our children should be doing with their time when they're very little is learning how to play. And of course, that can start when they're really little, like as soon as they're able to kind of sit on their tummy on the floor on a mat and start to look with curiosity around the room and start to try to figure out how they can get from point A to point B, and then they start to scooch and to crawl. You know how important it is that children learn to crawl and actually spend a good sizable amount of their life crawling before they go on to walking. But then they're walking, they're getting into the dog food dish, they're learning how to put their shoes on, they're learning how to say mama, they're learning how to sit in the high chair and eat solid foods. But even in the high chair, it's all about play. They want to touch everything, they want to throw their peas on the floor, they want to feed the dog. Everything is about exploring and seeing what this world is. Now, I do believe in boundaries for our children. I don't believe that we should let them just run completely free where they could get themselves hurt and get themselves into a situation where they can't control the environment. Of course, that's what we have mothers and fathers for, and older siblings and grandparents and friends, because our children shouldn't be left alone. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to explore and to play. Playing is the most active form of learning for a young child. Everything is concrete. They're touching it with their five senses, and curiosity draws them in to the world that Jehovah created. They are going to see it with their eyes. I mean, it's just so fascinating to watch a little baby and to smile. I like to go up in a grocery store and smile at a baby I don't know, and the poor parents are thinking, who's this weird woman? She's smiling at my kid. But it's really fun to smile at a child and see them go, some face over there smiles just besides my parents. And they're learning just absolutely at phenomenal rates. Their brain is growing. The reason they need good nutrition, the reason they need good sleep is because they're learning at rates that will never be matched the rest of their lives. So play is the way that Jehovah made them to be drawn into the world. Their curiosity with which they are born is going to help them develop amazing skills to learn. So you shouldn't think, I need to sit down with my child and have a workbook time, my 3-year-old, my 2-year-old, my 4-year-old, because the most important thing that you can do with your child is to allow them to play. Play also develops their attention span, and you can develop that a little bit by being wise as a mother. You can maybe say that in this time of the day we're going to play in our room, and I'm going to be supervising you, of course, but you need to play with the toys that I've provided. Maybe I'm only going to provide you with this box of Duplos, and with these Duplos you can let your attention span grow and build, and you can make something, and then later today we are going to play with something else. You should have a fairly even match of times in the day where you choose your child's toys and playthings, and they learn to let you, and they learn to have an imagination and be creative with whatever is at hand. And then there should be times that they are free to roam, free outside, free to roam on the grass if you have that available, free inside. But I think a good mix. It shouldn't be all freedom, because then when you pull those reins in at age 5 and suddenly say, I want you to sit down and do a worksheet, they're going to say, no, I've never done that. So you need to have a good balance. and grow their attention span. I want you to think about attention span and toys though for a second. I've noticed that you don't necessarily need to buy all of the toys that are on the market. I think we should focus on toys that build attention spans and build imagination, because those toys are different. Maybe you have a toy at age 1 that is useful for sucking and teething on, and you have a toy at age 2 that has an entirely different purpose. And then imagine if you have older siblings, or your children have older siblings. Have you ever seen a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old come in and start playing with the baby toys? They love it, but they are playing differently. Toys can serve a different purpose at every age, growing different parts of their brain, growing different parts of their attention span, growing their imagination, and that is what is just so fascinating about children and fascinating about toys. You don't have to really invest in that much money to get good toys. Now, I have found that I said they explore with their 5 senses, and everything is concrete when they're very small. But around the age of 3, there are 2 things that develop in a child. First of all, I have noticed that they start to ask why. That can be really annoying. It can be right around the age of 3. It might be a little earlier, it might be a little later, but all of a sudden they say, "Why, Mom? Why is this? Why is that? Why are you doing this? Why does a toy do this? Why when you pour it is..." And why opens a million doors that weren't there the year before, or even maybe a week before. Suddenly the world just opened up huge. So watch for that, and when you see that, I think that's the time to start discussing with your children, not just teaching them and talking to them and having them learn vocabulary, but having discussions. And actually, as a mother speaks to her son or daughter, you can have discussions and tell them why. Why is a wonderful thing. You don't always have time. Sometimes they have to obey without a why, but try to go back later and give them a why. They want to know. And give them a reason from Scripture from a very young age. When they want to know why, that's the time to start filling them up with all of the answers that you can, pointing them, of course, always to Jehovah, to His Scriptures. But of course, why is also an indication of a second thing, and that is an imagination. Now, some people are worried that children shouldn't be allowed to imagine things too much. The world shouldn't be allowed to be pretended away. Only thing is, I disagree a little bit, and that is because as a young child, we perceive the world differently, and our imagination allows us to learn how to act appropriately in the world, how to act biblically. I think of the verse in 1 Corinthians 13 where Paul says, "When I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things." And we should put away those childish things. We should come to grips with reality. But when we're a child, it's as if that's the way He made us, to think like a child, to speak like a child. Let your kids act like a child. They're only going to have so many opportunities in life to be a child, and they will have to grow up someday and put those things aside. Now, what are some of the valuable things that happen when you allow an imagination? First of all, children mimic. They copycat everything, and I think that's the key. Their imagination is not pretending so that they can get away from the struggles of life and they're so sick of reality. No, that's not at all why children would pretend even if life was perfect. Children pretend because they're copycatting, and I think that's what God made them to do. That is why He says when you sit, when you rise, when you walk along the way, when you lie down at night, that you should discuss things with them, because they will then copy you. You are their example. That's also why it says, "These commands which I have given you this day shall be upon your heart," because your children will copy you. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So some of the things that they're going to copy, they're going to copy problem-solving skills. Have you ever seen a child, I'm thinking of a little girl with a doll. She's going to be coming up with problem-solving skills and then teaching her little doll, just like you, the mother, might be teaching her. They will have problem-solving skills. Let's see, how do I get into that cabinet that Mom doesn't let me get into? Those are the problem-solving skills we might have to supervise. They're going to build reasoning skills. If this, then that. I know we're making it complicated. They make it so simple. Children, thinking like a child is wonderful. They're going to be learning building and construction skills. Some people are afraid of having our children learn to build cities, but you can have them build homes. And don't be afraid of cities. I know Nimrod built cities. We don't want our children to act like him, but it wasn't the city that was the problem, because even God, our Father, Jehovah, is the builder of a city, and Abraham says he was looking forward to a city whose makers and foundations foundations were of God, and He is making a new Jerusalem for us. City isn't the problem. It's just the city that is minus our Creator. That's the problem. So teach your children about their Creator and teach them to build cities. I love Duplos, Legos as they get older and can't swallow things. Lincoln Logs. We used to have all kinds of construction things. Do you remember some of the ones back in the 80s? And all of these ways to, cardboard boxes, pots and pans, all of these things that you can build up into cities and houses and barns and factories, and all of these things that as the children go about their lives and see with their eyes what is out there and experience it, they will come right back home and build it themselves. And that's a fantastic thing. God made us to be builders. They will learn risk-taking. They are a lot safer taking a risk in the world of imagination. I think of elementary school children climbing a tree and imagining things is a lot safer than learning to take a risk when they are teenagers and they've never tried it. Part of the thing about parenting is that you are, as a coach, you are on the sidelines and you are watching your child interact with life, and you are right there to help them make wise decisions and to coach them along. Someday they will be on their own, but as a preschooler, they are not, and they can learn to risk take and do things, the sky's the limit, and yet you are there to coach them and give them wisdom from years of experience. They can learn social skills as they play with other friends. And I hesitate a little bit. Sometimes we expect our children to play together with another child, but I don't see preschoolers doing that so much as just sitting alongside another child and they're both in their own imaginary worlds. Some children are more social than others. It tends to be girls, but not always. But don't be afraid if two little boys are sitting in the living room, both playing their own things, but they're together. They're still learning social skills. They're learning to respect and care for others. And this is the perfect time to teach your children 2 verses, to teach them, be ye kind one to another, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You can teach those at a very, very young age. Before they can even speak, you can teach them the verses and they can grunt them back, to have them repeat them back to you, and then show them, play act for them how they should act so that they will have something to copy. Another thing that is very important in our culture today that they can learn from imagination is gender identity. Girls can learn to be girls, boys can learn to be boys, and that is something, again, that they will mimic. I firmly believe that Jehovah had in mind exactly what gender He wanted your child to be, and it was rather obvious at birth when you looked with your eyes and saw what gender your child was. And yet, you may have to reinforce that in this society. And again, this happens fantastically with the toys that we give them in the home environment that they are in. They can learn their physical capabilities. What am I strong enough to do? A small little boy might think he is as strong as Dad and try to lift a big, 2x4 in the backyard, and he'll quickly find out he's not quite that strong. But he's learning to test and strengthen his physical capabilities. There are just a million examples of that. And finally, fairness. The old thing of life is not fair, and sometimes we have to give of ourselves sacrificially, and yet at other times we should not allow others to encroach across boundaries, into our environment, into our walls of our home, and that's a tough one. And we have to balance a love for others and a concern for them with also protecting rightly our families. And this is all stuff that your kids can learn as they pretend and as they watch you and you are their example. Basically, play reflects what is happening inside a child's mind. And that is why I love to watch my children play and to kind of step back and just observe the things that they're talking about out loud and the noises they're making and the ways that they are play acting, because it helps me see what they're thinking about. And I, of course, want to encourage them to think about His Word and His right Torah living all day long in as many ways as possible. Now, in some of our other videos, especially the videos from the first day of our conference, we had a video on 5 levels of learning and the very first foundation, the 4 character qualities that your children need in order to be successful in homeschooling, I highly encourage you to go and to be sure to watch that video. It very much applies to the preschool years. But we talk about how character is the very first level, and then we learn skill and content and communication before we reproduce ourselves at the age of 20 or older and other people. I do encourage you to make sure you have the time to go back and watch that video. Now, in our homeschooling curriculum, you may say, Anne, why do you have a curriculum if you don't believe that kids should be sitting at the table doing school and you think that they instead should be playing? Well, I have a curriculum for several goals. I basically had 3 goals. First of all, I want to teach my kids to have orderliness in their day, to have a respect for others, to have self-control, and to have biblical character. And we can teach some of those things proactively in an environment where they aren't actually being naughty at that moment. We can teach them how to act in preparation for the time when they may need us to remind them that we learned this and now you're being naughty. All right? These character qualities form the foundation of everything in life, and we emphasize in our curriculum the qualities from the book of Proverbs and the book of Deuteronomy. And now, there's a second reason I have a preschool curriculum, and this may not fit you, and if this one is not something you need, you might not want our preschool curriculum. But one of the things it's for is to give mom some time to talk and to teach her older children. I wanted her to have some activities that she wouldn't have to think of, because whenever I'm in the middle of a situation, I can't think of anything that I should give my little kids to do. And then they end up getting inevitably into trouble because a child left to himself brings his mother to shame. That's what the book of Proverbs says. So I wanted to give mom just some handy ideas at her fingertips. She can use them or not, but at least they are available. Some ideas of here's some things your kids could be doing right now while you do history and grammar and science and math with your older kids. Maybe you don't have older kids, so that may not be a need that you have. And finally, just to help moms feel less overwhelmed. Again, our point of a preschool curriculum was not to structure the day very tightly, but to give very loose suggestions. So I want you to know that our curriculum is not tightly regimented. We're just going to give you ideas, and that's basically what it's for. Of course, we also have access to the Torah portions and to chores and to, all kinds of instruction and help from mom. And those, always still have beginning reading instruction. So, as your 4-year-old maybe is ready and showing signs of readiness, we have that available for our preschool members. So basically, we have a learning time, we have a creative time, a building time, because I think building is important. We have outside time to remind you to get those kids outside, and we have rest time, which is not necessarily a nap, but just some quiet time to help children not get overstimulated, because that's a danger, don't you think? Sometimes we just want to stimulate, grow the brain, and the brain needs to rest. And I think that we need a good balance in our day of a time that we can say, we can make a cuddly corner over here with some pillows, and we can get you a little book that has coloring pictures that you've made over the year that will remind you of what we've learned and talked about, and you can sit there and quietly look at them, and here are some quiet activities that you could do in this quiet little corner, and maybe you'll lay your head down on the pillow for a minute. That's always good. All right, some of the skills that we cover in our preschool curriculum, we teach about the 5 senses. We want to work on language development. We have pre-reading skills. We talk about relationship of 2 objects. This one's longer, this one's shorter, this one's higher, this one's lower. We sort and we classify. We have buttons and we have shoes and we have socks. We have them do. Kids love that. We have counting and measuring, especially in kitchen. We have problem solving, we have exploring, we have creativity, lots of hands-on art projects, and we have things that talk about your family's identity and the things that in our family we believe this. And in our family we treat each other like this. And then we have just ways to encourage physical growth and record some of the fun physical growth milestones that your children are experiencing. Now I want to talk a little bit about schedules. What do you do about a schedule? I know scheduling is a really bad word everywhere online. I think I would really like the word flexible routine, because a flexible routine lets your child know what is next in the day, and letting them know what's next gives them a lot of security. But when I think of a schedule, I think of it must be done at 10 o'clock, and then at 10:15 we're going to take a bathroom break, and at 10:20 we're going to have a snack. That sounds like a daycare. We're not a daycare, we're a house. No, I'm thinking more of, honey, we're going to have some breakfast, and then after breakfast we're going to sit at the table while Daddy reads the Bible. And then, and as you go through the day, you have a flexible routine. Flexible is the key word there, because I firmly believe the Ruach brings into our lives interruptions, and we should listen to his interruptions, and we should allow them. Oh, okay, that wasn't on my schedule today, but he wanted it on my schedule. But if every day is filled with interruptions, it's probably that we are bad managers of our time, and we need to maybe discipline ourselves to stay on a little bit of a flexible routine so our children can relax, knowing that right now I can play outside in the backyard because it's not lunchtime yet, but soon it will be lunchtime, and I know my mommy will make me a good lunch. All right, and so on. I do have a book available on our website. It is free for all of our members, even our preschool members. It is called The 4 Foundations of Lifelong Learning, and it is how to get your little ones ready for school. In it, I have everything I could think of for your children, and how to handle the baby years, the toddler years, the preschool years, and even the young elementary years. And I highly recommend it. Again, it is free for all of our members. If you would like a copy and you are not a member, it's available on Amazon.com or on foundationspress.com. And it is called The 4 Foundations of Lifelong Learning. Now, back to scheduling. The reason I mentioned that book, sorry, that sounded a little crazy in the middle there, a commercial, but that book has a bunch of ideas on how to set up a schedule or a flexible routine. Here are some tips, though, just to get you started. Get out a blank piece of paper, and in it, divide it into your time periods that it would be if it were an ideal day. We're not going to stick to those times necessarily, but it helps you as you're setting it up to see if you can even fit this many activities into a day. So get out a blank piece of paper, divide it up into time slots, pencil in meal times first. I'm a strong believer that little children, as they are growing, as their metabolisms are metabolizing hormones and learning circadian rhythms, light and dark, all of these, light is coming into their eyes. There's so much science that says that our bodies function better if we eat at about the same time every day, if we sleep at about the same time every day. And as your child, as your very young child, as your baby starts to grow, you can influence their metabolism and their health and their learning abilities, not allowing them to get overstimulated by setting regular meal times. It sounds so silly, but that is probably the one time a day you should actually look at a clock. That your baby needs to be fed at regular intervals so that their metabolism can grow. And your toddler, so important. Another thing that I tend to schedule pretty tightly in my home. My mom made us all of us kids take a nap every day until we were 5, and I actually did it till I was sick, or to 6 because I was sick a lot. But that wasn't, she didn't do it because I was sick. She did it because she just believed that growing bodies needed a nap, and we weren't given the option. We had lunch, we went to the bathroom, washed our hands, made sure we'd gone to the bathroom. She usually read one very small book to us, not 2. No, there was no, Mommy, read one more. Not with my mom, no. And then she tucked us in, she closed the door. I think she left a crack, because I kind of remember my mom peeking her head in the door once in a while, because she had a rule, and that was your head stays on the pillow. I didn't have to sleep, she'd say, but my head had to stay on the pillow. No toys, just head had to stay on the pillow until she came back to tell me nap time was over. I always fell asleep. I had one son that didn't actually fall asleep, and I would have to put my timer on in the kitchen or forget about him, and the poor kid would be in there all day. That's not what I want you to do. But, allowing a 2-hour nap time for a young child is fantastic for their growing. So lunch, bathroom, diaper change, one of those things. And then a nap. Head stays on the pillow. That's the rule. Consequences if they don't, but they do. They learn that you mean it, and you could even, as they get old enough to talk, you could say, "What did I say?" Head stays on the pillow, and then they have to repeat it back to you. And okay, kiss, close the door, and they take a nap. So those are some two non-negotiables on my schedule that I said was a routine, and that is meal times 3 times a day. Snacks are great too. And then a nap. Okay, but what does your child do when they are awake? Well, and what time do you even want them to wake up in the morning? You know, if your child is waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and you as mom are not getting your sleep, then just tell them to go back to bed. Head stays on pillow. You may not get up. God made daytime for playing and dark time, nighttime for sleeping. Is the sun up? Then you may not be up either. That was the rule. It can backfire if you live in the northern states. But generally speaking, if the sun was up, you may be up. And if the sun is in bed, you must be in bed also. What are some other activities that happen each day? You've got a bedtime routine. Do you want him to have a bath? Do you want him to have some chores? Do you want to have some events outside the home? Schedule any of those things in. And then don't forget to have a time to start training your child to do simple chores. Just having the time each day they participate in helping the family and the household run efficiently is a great thing that children need to learn. The things, some areas that they can work on is picking up their toys. Before you get new toys out, you must put these toys away. Are you sure you are done? You know, oh, I have to put it away? Oh, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I could play with this one longer. That's just a simple rule. There are times to break that rule, obviously, but generally speaking, you can't get more toys out until you've put these away. That'll keep your house so much neater, and it is an important skill for your child to learn. Another one is to take care of his room, help him learn to make his bed, and then small kitchen jobs, you know, putting a little garbage away, cutting, not with a knife so much so as maybe with a plastic knife to help them learn some knife skills, learning just to put some of the dishes away after drying things. You can put them in the low cupboards, get things out of the fridge from mommy. You can help with a dust broom and cleaning, help clean with a spray bottle, some windows. Obviously, you're not looking for great skill here. You're just looking for them to learn to participate in the family. They are part of the family, and as it says in the apostolic scriptures, if a man will not work, he should not eat. And that should go for your children too, and you can teach them that from a young age. What together times does your family have each day? Do you read the Torah together each day? When do you have meetings with your congregation? Do you have a read aloud time? Your child may not understand the chapter books that you're reading to your older children, but it is very valuable for them to listen in. You would be surprised how much they absorb from listening to reading aloud, to discussions about politics and history and Torah and religion and how grandma's acting and all of these things that you discuss in your family. Your little children are listening, but you can have a small toy basket or something in the living room that as you're doing that, they may quietly play. They may quietly learn to color with a crayon on a piece of paper. Those are ways that you can prepare them for school time. All right, now that you can see how much time is left over in your day, now you can start to fill in some of these things that we have in our curriculum, such as time to be creative, to be near mom and sitting at the table and coloring with crayons, doing scissors and learning skills. And obviously this is not for a little tiny child, but as they get closer to school age. Building time, this might be in the same room with mom as she's doing school with the older kids, but maybe over in a corner and they have their toys and things that they can do to build. But this is alone and independent time. You want to put on the routine to have outside time, and they're going to need supervision. They may need, if your mom are the only person, then you've got to have a time in your day that your child can get outside and play. Make sure that that is available for them. Where are they going to play if the weather is bad? Do you have a place that they can get out their wiggles so not constantly have to hold still? You know, if the weather is bad and they can't play outside, then maybe there should be a half hour time a day that they can, you know, roll around on the couch and do somersaults and not worry about your home. And if you are worried about them breaking something, then you can at least allow them the freedom to do it for a short time, you know. But children have to move. They are growing huge muscles. I strongly encourage getting them to a park and letting them get on the monkey bars and go hand over hand and to swing. Those are things that are not only relaxing and fun and build strong muscles, but they're very good for brain development. And finally, again, rest time in the corner. Quiet. This is quiet time, not nap time. It's good to have your children learn to play alone for 20 minutes a day. Play alone, no entertainment. And it's not necessarily the end of the world to have a time of day, maybe as the late afternoon as you are trying to get supper ready, where they can watch a video. It's just not the end of the world. You don't want them to be doing it 24/7, but that gives you a little bit of a help as you're maybe preparing supper. Otherwise, let older siblings learn to care for their little brothers and sisters. Let them take turns being partners. Maybe they have also a dedicated partner that as you go out and about shopping in places, that they have a partner that can help you. You don't have to do it all. Now, as we've said in the other video, the one about character quality, the number one skill that your child needs to learn is obedience. But isn't this the most important skill that you want your child to learn anyway? Obedience to you as the mother and father is commanded in the Torah, in the 10 Commandments. Honor your father and your mother. They will then learn as they grow to redirect that honor and that obedience to their heavenly Father. As they learn to as almost second nature, obey you, it will be second nature for them to obey God. And that is really where you want to go. Finally, make sure you have a time in your day to snuggle with your child and read to them. I like to do it before bed, but you might have a different time of day that you choose, but try to be consistent. Sit with your child and read to them from a book. Picture books are fine. Make sure they have words, that they learn to read, that words go from left to right. Of course, you might want to get a book on Hebrew and learn that in some languages, especially God's very special language of Hebrew, it goes from right to left. They can learn that, follow along with the words. Of course, read the Torah to them. I want to highly recommend books by Torah Family Living. They have excellent books for your little preschoolers, and including a Torah book that you can read with your youngest children. It doesn't leave out any of the Torah, but it puts it in a way that they can easily understand, and it has great pictures. But you need fiction to help them pretend and see how others live, and nonfiction, biographies, missionary stories, stories from Scripture, stories from great heroes in the Bible. And you can get Christian books, and if you don't like the way the names are presented, the sacred names, you can change those. I have a train going by. I think your preschoolers would love to live at my house today. I have 40 trains that go by my house every single day. Pretty quick, you won't be able to hear me, so I'm going to sign out. If you have questions, if you have things you want to discuss, please let me know. We can help you out. And bless your preschoolers with an example that is godly and from the Torah. That's the best thing you can give them. Shalom.